There we go. All right. Good afternoon. I am Andrea Bonina, and I'm a partner here at the law firm of Bonina and Bonina. I am happy to welcome you to Frequently Asked Friday, where we answer questions that we're commonly getting at our law firm. Today, we're going to be answering questions about what you need to know before the Adult Survivors Act window closes on November 23rd, 2023. So, we've done a number of FAQ Fridays on the topic of the Adult Survivors Act, and people are are asking questions now that we're approaching the end of that time period. So in case you missed our earlier frequently asked Fridays, on the topic, when the Adult Survivors Act, also known as the ASA, became law, it allowed anyone who was sexually assaulted or abused when they were over the age of 18 to file a civil lawsuit against the person who assaulted them, and when appropriate, the corporations, institutions, governmental entities, schools, or organizations that enabled that abuse. Um, Usually, in all civil cases, there are very strict time limitations that give the time period you're allowed to file a claim in. The Adult Survivors Act eliminated time limits for sexual assault claims so that survivors could file their claims regardless of when the abuse or assault happened if they filed within the 1 year window that the law opened up for them. Now, that window is expiring on November 23rd, 2023. And, in the past couple of months, I've spoken to many survivors, and they have questioned whether they wanted to relive their trauma by starting a lawsuit. So, the first thing I want to do is acknowledge that the decision about whether to pursue civil litigation is a deeply personal one. If you're considering filing a lawsuit because you were abused or assaulted sexually, you need to know that you are going to have to discuss the details about what happened to you with your attorneys. And in addition to talking about it with your attorneys, you're going to need to review documents that they prepare that detail what happened to you. You're likely to need to testify as well at a deposition, and it's possible that you may have to even testify at trial. This can be very distressing and can cause a lot of people to feel like they're being re traumatized. So it's important that if you were the victim of sexual assault or abuse, that you choose an attorney who understands the impact that that trauma had on you and will work with you compassionately to guide you through the process. And that's very important. You want to make sure it's a good fit and that your attorney has knowledge not just of the law, but about how trauma impacts people. Now, I've been asked also what kind of cases can be brought under the Adult Survivors Act. Cases brought under the Adult Survivors Act are civil cases seeking money damages. Civil cases require the person bringing the lawsuit to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that what they have alleged is true. Now, preponderance of the evidence generally means more likely than not. That's different from a criminal burden of proof. The civil burden of proof is not as high as the criminal burden of proof. Now, many sexual assault victims are hesitant to come forward. And there can be a lot of reasons for that. And one of the reasons that I've heard, and one of the concerns that's been expressed to me, is the fear that people might not believe them. So, if you're considering moving forward under the ASA, you should know that attorneys who are experienced in this area of practice understand not just the effect that trauma can have and why it makes some people wait to come forward, but also they understand where to look for the evidence in these cases so that they can present all of the evidence in the best possible light for you. Now, some types of evidence that can help prove an ASA claim are medical records or psychotherapy notes where you may have talked about what happened to you with a doctor or a therapist. Additionally, at times there are police reports. There are frequently complaints made if it's something that happened in a work environment or a school environment or an institution. There are complaints made, including text messages and email notifications about um, abuse or assault, and that's important in terms of evidence proving what happened. Additionally, communications you may have had at the time with family or friends where you discussed what happened, or any photos or records that can substantiate what you are alleging. That's all going to be very important to prove your case in your civil case by a preponderance of the evidence. Another concern that's been brought up by survivors of sex abuse with me is protecting their privacy. So if you are concerned about starting a lawsuit and you don't want to expose what happened to you to the whole world to know about, you should know that as a survivor of sexual assault, sexual abuse, or incest, you can file a motion to proceed under a pseudonym. And you can sue either as a Jane Doe or under your initials or some other pseudonym. Courts normally grant these motions and permit plaintiffs to proceed under a pseudonym to protect their identity. So that's something that if you have a concern about, you should definitely raise it with your attorney. That way they can protect your privacy. Another question to consider that's been raised many times with myself, my partner John, and the other people on our team is whether, as a survivor, you're going to be able to recover money damages in your case. And first, you should know that, we have had cases where we've sued individual defendants and we've been able to recover money damages for our clients despite the fact that there was not insurance on those cases. However, if the only case you have is against an individual and that individual does not have assets, you may not be able to collect on a judgment or obtain a settlement from that person. Um, if there is an organization, a school, a corporation, or some other type of entity that enabled or covered up the abuse or the assault, they may be responsible and there may be insurance, but that's something that an attorney experienced in this area is going to be able to investigate and determine and then name proper parties to protect your rights. So it's important that if you are considering going forward with litigation like this, you act promptly because these cases can take some time to investigate and it can take some effort to determine everyone who may be responsible. And you don't want to wait till the last minute, and that window is closing soon, November 23rd, 2023. Um, no lawyer can guarantee an outcome in a case like this or in any other case. And there's a lot to consider and a lot to think about if you're thinking about coming forward. If you have questions, I'm here for you. My team is here for you, and we can be reached at 718-522-1786. Just keep in mind that if you do want to act, that window is closing November 23rd, 2023. I hope that you are doing well, and I hope that this answered your questions about what you need to know about the ASA before the window closes on November 23rd, 2023. And I thank you for joining me today. Take care.